One I've heard even recently is, bands never work. Yes, they do. I'm sorry, but yes, they do. I mean, when they raised the drinking age to 21, teenage drinking has just plummeted.
Right. My 12-year-old's not coming home with scratchers for the California lottery. Bands don't work? What does that even mean?
I know.
We already know what helps. Connection is the cure. It's our deep, meaningful relationships that give us hope and healing. Welcome to This Helps. I'm Marlon Morgan, licensed professional clinical counselor and founder and CEO of the national nonprofit Wellness Together. Join us as we practice authentic and vulnerable conversations that inspire us to go deeper with the people in our own lives. Why do we have Dr. Jean Twenge on, you ask? I mean, I didn't hear you ask it, but I'm pretty sure that's what you're wondering. And I'll tell you, because she's an absolute boss, because I think she may be the world's foremost expert leading us into the future by studying the past, because she has so many longitudinal studies that show our mental health changes as a society, as different generations over a long period of time. That's why. Back to Dr. Jean Twenge, of which, sadly, Dr. Cameron did pronounce it Twenge, which then I did to her when I first met her nearly 10 years ago. And she very much corrected me and said it's Twenge with a hard G. Dr. Jean Twenge is a psychologist, researcher, and author who focuses on generational change, teen mental health, technology, and the impact of smartphones and social media on kids and families. She's best known for her books iGen and Generations, which have helped shape the national conversation on how smartphones and social media are affecting young people. Her latest book is what we talked about quite a bit because it was full of very helpful information for me as a parent of a 12-year-old and a 4-year-old, but it's called 10 Rules for Raising Kids in a High-Tech World, offers practical guidance for parents navigating childhood in the digital age. It's a great episode. I almost forgot. I don't know if you remember the last episode where I shared my biggest fan / most honest critic for this show. So you have to thank my mom. And she said, Marlon, I love the show. It's called This Helps. And so I want you to actually help people from the very beginning. So I will try to do that. My mom's actual words were, I want to know that when I play the show, that something's going to help me, even if I don't, quote, even if I don't give a who your guest is. So this one's for you, Mom, and hopefully other people like it too. I'm going to try to help. I'm going to answer our incredible, intelligent, wonderful producer Andrea's question.
Wow.
At the top of the show. And if you say you just care about the guest. Say you see the name of the guest and you say, I only give a shit about this guest. Then you can just fast forward this part.
That's right. You talked a lot with Dr. Twenge about the social media bans, about parents putting limits on their kids' access to phones, all of that. But I think what we didn't get to was what happens when you do stick to your guns, you hold that boundary, but your kid has a meltdown when screen time ends anyway. If you've, especially for younger kids who have limits on that, what's going on there? What is that meltdown really about? And how can a parent respond in a way that won't just make that meltdown even meltier?
Well, there's a couple reasons for a meltdown like that. And some of it's just like strict behaviorism, and they're going to melt down as much as they can so that they can get exactly what they want in that moment. And you kind of have to lovingly wait it out and wait for what we call an extinction burst.
Oh, I've never heard that before.
You don't know about that?
No, extinction burst.
Yeah, it's like if there's a behavior you would like to go extinct. there's often a huge and emotional ramp up to that behavior actually going away, especially for little kids. And I would say for adults as well, because I don't know if you've ever, as an adult, tried to stop doing something that you wanted to stop doing. It does get pretty emotional. And I don't know if we want to go into strict behaviorism right now, but if that happens, it's normal. And there's a few ways to think about it. You can't just think about the moment it's happening. Kids are usually always in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
They often don't have, depending on how old they are, the ability to be anywhere else. So you have to kind of think for them and prep them, give them some time before the transition, make sure they know that there's other ways and that they're going to get their needs met if they're really into what's happening on the screen, and there has to be a transition. Talk about it before they even start the screen usage, and talk about what it is, like what it feels like when they have to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure to address it, because right when that happens, they're not really thinking with their frontal cortex and
Mm-hmm.
making sound decisions. They're just upset that something that they really like is not going
It's
to
being
be
taken
there.
away, right?
Yeah. So
Huh.
you got to kind of walk them through it. But if you react poorly to how they react, then essentially it's making, proving the point to them, whether they know it or not,
Mm-hmm.
that they're probably not going to get their needs met emotionally outside
Yeah.
of the safety of that game or that show or whatever. So try and do your best to take care of yourself as a parent, get some sleep, make sure you're doing okay,
Mm-hmm.
because dealing with temper tantrums at any age is no joke and takes a lot of patience, takes a lot of truth and grace. You need to be able to provide both. Hopefully this has helped you, and on with the show. Dr. Jean Twenge, welcome to This Helps.
Thanks very much.
It's hard for me to overstate this point of the show in which you are joining us. I want to paint a picture back to the somewhat unremarkable campus of Sacramento State University in 2005, where one of my favorite classes in undergrad, I did an undergrad in psychology, was psychology of personality. Now, my professor, Dr. Cameron, mentioned this study. And of course, that was a long time ago. And so it's clearly central to the way I've gone in life. And, it was one of the most fascinating things that I learned in my undergrad. She mentioned that there was this one researcher who was looking at mental health over generations, longitudinal effects, and comparing, our mental health from, I think she said, the 1930s and 40s, all the way until that time, in the early 2000s. And what the researcher had found was that, we were much more anxious, at least. And I think it was also, depression was higher as well. I could not believe that anyone was doing that. It was the most interesting thing. So I had to go and talk to her and find out who this person was. And of course, she said it was Dr. Jean Twenge. But what I've learned from you early on is that is not how you say it. Dr. Jean Twenge, I know you're here to hopefully tell us a little bit about your most recent book, which is sort of a culmination of the research in a very understandable way, very usable, almost a manual. I mean, we have quotes, we have, your kid says this, here's what to say back. I mean, it's got everything. Tell us a little bit about 10 rules for raising kids in a high-tech world.
Yeah, so that's my most recent book, and it does review a little bit of the research at the beginning, but it really is, as you said, meant to be a practical guide for parents. So I have been doing research on teen and child tech use for about 10 years. Started to see a connection to poor mental health. More recently, also started to see connections to cognitive difficulties, academic performance. But when I started this, my own kids were pretty young. They were 9, 6, and 4. They are now 19, 16, and 14. So over that 10 years, it started to become a big thing in my house as well. Like, when are we going to give our kids phones? When are we going to give them laptops? What kind of controls are we going to put on those laptops? What do we do when their school laptop doesn't have the ability to put parental controls? And then how do we manage that? Just all of these questions cropping up. And I was giving a lot of talks to parents and hearing their questions too. And a lot of them were the same that my family had. And we, came up with a few solutions, and then also, through the research and talking to other experts, kind of came to a consensus on some things too about like the best practice for families. So it was really the collision of my research life and my life as a mom that resulted in this book. I also am just somebody who loves advice books, and I'm very practical. And when I read stuff, I want really solid, practical advice that you can put into practice. And so often what I read in other books that are supposed to be, parent guides for technology and kids, some of them are great, and some of them are great writers and great researchers and have some cool stuff in them, but almost all of them were, I don't know how else to put it, squishy. They'd be like, well, it depends. Like, when should you give your kid a smartphone? Well, it depends. And I don't know. I didn't find that helpful at all.
Well, what are they running for office? Why would they do that?
That's a good question. Yeah, I have never entirely figured that out. Yeah, I guess I understand the basic impulse to an extent that kids are different. But for so many other things that are more designed for adults, or really should only be done by adults, like drinking, voting, driving, only done by adults and older teenagers, we chose an age and stuck with it. We didn't say it depends.
Right. And
it actually makes it easier. As a society, it's much easier that we have a set time when you are allowed to buy alcohol, a set time when you're allowed to vote, a set time when you're allowed to start driving a car on your own. And I realized that's actually easier for parents as well, to have a line in the sand. Then that's it. Because if you say it depends and you tell your kid, well, we'll wait until you're ready, your kid is going to tell you every second of every day that they're ready right now.
Of course they are. And also, how would they know if I don't even know? And yes. I've known them forever.
Exactly. Exactly. Right. I mean, that's the thing that you have to keep in mind as parents of kids and teens, even when they're young adults, that thing about the frontal lobe not being fully developed until 25, that's like the highlight reel of any parent with teens, or even those with college students or young adults. You just see that all the time. So, I have to say I'm not responsible for this quote, but I really like it. Scott Galloway said, he has 2 sons, 2 teenage sons, and he said, I have to be their frontal lobe until it shows up. And I think that's exactly it.
When you put it that way, it's sort of, you're their stand-in. It almost feels like Carl Rogers saying you have to be the good parent, but instead you have to be the front brain and help them figure out. But teens, and you've pointed this out, their job is sort of to fight you in a way and find their own independence. So it's kind of hard if you're trying to force the outsourcing and advice from your frontal lobe to theirs, and they're like, no, get out of here. Everything you say, I don't want to do that. Is that, how do we do that?
Yeah. I mean, look, that's being the parent of teenagers.
Yeah.
Being the parent of teenagers is very humbling. And it also, you really learn even more about how to manage your emotions, like even more than when you had a toddler doing dumb stuff. Having a teenager, the level of contempt and hostility can sometimes be off the scale, even if you have a good relationship, even if they're, good kids who aren't getting in serious trouble. That's just that's their developmental stage. They will push back. So that is what makes it tough. It is especially these days what makes it tough around technology. And, when I started writing that book, I mean, one of the kind of guiding principles I had is I'm not going to tell people that this is easy. I'm going to try to give them a roadmap and give them some practical tips to try to make it easier. But I'm not going to claim, kind of like, I don't know, like, the latest fad diet or something. Oh, just do this and it'll be super easy.
Right.
It's not going to be, it's not always easy. And you do have to hold your ground. But it does work out better in the long run.
I think it helps hearing from someone who has and is continuing to do the things that you are, you've kind of walked the road, you walk us through it, you let us see the mistakes that you've made and how we can learn from that. The other thing I want to say about teenagers, when you were talking, I thought, because I have a toddler and a 12-year-old, and I feel like they're very similar. And you know what? Even me, as this is my birthday, I'm 46 today, and I'm the same as they are, but they have different ways. So like my toddler will get upset and just say, no, I'm not doing it, and stomp his feet. My 12-year-old, however, if he really doesn't want to do something, he knows a lot about me, and he knows something that he knows what would affect me. And so his front brain, maybe it's not all the way there, but whatever the insult comic part of the brain is, that's there. That's there.
Isn't that
that's
amazing?
Fully there.
Oh, and at 12, wait a couple more years, and that really is. They're like, what was the one on like Conan O'Brien where you had the
Triumph?
Yeah,
Triumph,
the insult comic dog with the cigar like that. That is a teenager.
For me to poop on. Yeah,
yes,
it's like
I know. What a great analogy. I absolutely love that. It is so true.
Yeah.
It is so true.
He'll say something I forgot that I even did. Like the other day, I'm just minding my own business, eating, and the sound of my chewing, you would think I was an absolutely disgusting cow in the field, the way he reacted to the sound of my chewing. So it's like they're overdeveloped in some ways, but then the other ways it's just like, no, you can't rent a car for at least another 12 years or 10 years or whatever.
Yeah. So there's that piece. I think the other piece that kind of comes in here too is they know everything. Yeah. They know absolutely everything, and their parents know zero. There's a Mark Twain quote that goes something like this, at 18, I thought my parents knew absolutely nothing. At 21, I was amazed at how much they had learned in 3 years.
That's great. I love that. You've got some pretty good jokes throughout this book. The first time I laughed out loud while I was reading it, I don't think you meant it as a full joke, but you brought up digital literacy. And then you just said...
I hesitated with that one. I did, but we can get into why I did it.
It needed to be done because, of course, I started out as a school counselor a long time ago and, still very involved in education at the state, federal level, all this stuff. So I hear digital literacy a lot. I hear it a lot when it comes to how we're reacting to or regulating or making policy around technology for kids. And then you just said something like, and then there's digital literacy or whatever that is.
Yeah.
Or whatever that means. Yeah. And I was just like, perfect. What does it mean? Does it mean like all of a sudden because I'm literate in digital things that sophisticated addictive algorithms aren't going to work on me? This is wild.
Exactly. And that's why I ended up leaving that in, because I risked it because I know that, there's a lot of energy around, teaching kids digital literacy. And I'm not necessarily opposed to it. I just think it's not enough. There was a dad who I talked to once who said, I am a full grown adult and the algorithm gets me.
Yes. It gets me
knowing what an
instantly.
algorithm is doesn't prevent you from falling victim to it.
No. And it's also tough, too. I find myself trying to explain to my 12-year-old what an algorithm is and why they would use it. And at some point, I have to be like, look, there are people, and unfortunately, they often are the richest, most powerful people, and they don't give a shit about you. Mm-hmm. They want to sell their ads and make money. And I'm immediately having to explain to him I wouldn't talk to him about capitalism for another 10 years
Mm-hmm.
probably, or but
Mm-hmm.
now I have to like be like, well, here's human nature, and you know what, the other side's not perfect either. Here's communism, here's what that looks like, socialism, like people are taking advantage in all these places. So it has opened up like a full-on like Marxist discussion in my house, and I've had to like find out where I am, with
Yeah,
it, because
those. I
then
mean,
it
those are great discussions to have, and that I've found that's one of the arguments that teens actually do respond to is the idea that social media is an adult conspiracy because they love to see adult conspiracies. Oh, adults are doing this, to
yeah
make teens feel bad or to do this or that. They love those for some reason. They're kind of susceptible to them, and in this case, they're actually right.
Yeah, yeah, it gives them a machine to rage against early on. They can do that. So yeah, you kind of go into it a little bit about how you know as kids, as younger people, and as adults, we're up against these systems that are created to grab our attention, to hold our attention. A few one-liners that what did you call smartphones? I think you called it like an experience blocker, which I thought was like, man, that's like a whole book in one word, in two words. But tell us what you mean by that.
Well, it means if you're on the phone, what are you not doing? And what you're not doing is often stuff that would be better for you, like going to bed, or uh, talking to friends or family face to face, or being outside and exercising, or reading a book. Um, that is what a lot of times people will be doing instead. And to be fair, I've heard some. There's some evidence to suggest that when people cut back on social media, they start watching TV more. Even that is better for you than social media.
Yeah, and TV it doesn't have you figured out quite as
Exactly.
much.
Yes.
And the other thing is, uh, watching a show in the room with other people, you're
Yes.
still, learning something that you can talk about later versus
Exactly.
slowly growing further apart.
That
Yeah.
and I love that point. I think that's something that hasn't been emphasized enough here is that social media and YouTube and sometimes streaming can be on an individual device rather than that TV on the wall in the living room or the bedroom that you watch with someone else. Sometimes you watch it alone, but you can watch it with someone else. It's a totally different experience. A shared experience versus individual. And and I was thinking about this today too, and just digging in some data on like family relationships and how that relates to social media. And I'll spare you like the in the weeds, like analysis and statistics of it.
Please don't. I'm
Oh,
interested.
well, it was just something I was thinking about of just in one of the big databases I work with, something about like, could you go to your parent if you had a problem? I love that's
Mm,
such a great question, right? To ask of teenagers.
very. Hmm.
And when you think about that one, so it was correlated with social media use and hours per day. So those who spent more time on social media less likely to go to their parent with a problem. And I was thinking about it kind of in the way that you're talking about because on the one hand, you could go, well, okay, they have a bad relationship with their parents. That's why they're spending a lot of time on social media. But I was like, it could also go the other way. If you get sucked into that social media world and you're spending that much time on there, first that then you don't have as much time to think to build that relationship with your parent. If you're doing that instead of talking to them at family dinner or watching TV with them or taking a walk with them or whatever it is, also it's that piece too of social media pulls teens into a world outside of their family. And that can sometimes be good, but to excess, it's alienating
Right, because
because
you're
with,
fully in a different world,
yes,
not experiencing anything. The other thing that you mention in the book is that at least they're not bored. But that's what they would say. But what's the truth behind them being
yeah.
on their device and
Mhm.
actually being bored?
Yeah. So this I think is some of the coolest social psych research that's come out in the last couple of years is finding that when people are on devices, they're actually more bored, not less, right?
Is that a semantics thing? I mean, do kids even know? I mean, are we saying bored for anxious? Like I used to tell my private practice clients, like anytime they say bored, just substitute anxious. Yeah.
I mean, that might be part of it, but I think what kids know, I think they know what bored means. I think they're using it in roughly the same way. And and this data spans age groups too. So like one of the studies was more young adults, and they went out to dinner with friends, either with or without their phone. And when they had their phone accessible, they found the experience more boring, not less, which I thought was really striking. Also, that's a random assignment experiment, so we know causation there.
Right. One thing that gets brought up a number of times, and we have some younger people who work in our company who, when they first came on from this most recent generation, they needed to make a few phone calls. And these are people that are smart, top of the class, diligent, hardworking. I mean, they're perfect for the job they're in.
And let me guess, they were scared to make phone calls.
Like on the verge of tears.
Wow. I hear that from my undergrads all the time.
But what made me think of it is they're doing things like going out to eat and ordering food and things. That's happening in real time. Is that just scripted enough where it's okay? And then the phone is just, why is the phone so terrifying for some?
Well, what you got to remember with the ordering food, sometimes that's also now done through the phone. Right? That if you order for delivery, that's how you do it now. Online or through an app. Even some restaurants are that way now.
I was trying to, of course, like every especially parent does, make it about themselves. I was trying to think about the first person who I was interested in high school and how scared I was to make the call because I got her phone number and it was like through, of course, like 2 or 3 different friends or like, if he asks you for the phone number. So all that. So I get it. Like it was I could not think about anything else. But I remember my mom told me, make a list of questions to ask her because you're going to get nervous and like know how to go about it. So I feel like I experienced that, but I experienced it freshman year. And if you have to call your crush and keep the conversation going, that I feel like I could call the president after that. I felt more confident than ever. So, but is that what we're missing?
Yeah. So what your experience illustrates is that the best cure for anxiety is experience.
Yeah. You talk about exposure. Yeah. Tell us about exposure therapy and how you're kind of advocating for that for our kids.
I mean, that's one of our bedrock findings in psychology is for anxiety, even for severe phobias, that's the treatment, is exposure. Maybe not all at once, sometimes gradual, but sometimes it's even flooding and just like all at once. I mean, the one time I ever taught intro, that's a video I showed the class. It was a woman who was, just absolutely terrified of snakes. Because they showed at first, like she's all the way across the room and she is like almost on the floor in a ball, just bawling.
Yeah.
Within 3 hours, she's holding the snake. Because they did the exposure therapy gradually building up to that.
Gosh, the self-efficacy after going through something like that. Of course, you're going to sleep for 2 days because your nervous system's probably shot. But so you're saying.
So she can do that. Your kid can make a phone call.
Okay, that's what I thought you were saying. Okay, yeah, I think that's really helpful for. But how do you put that into language? And you do this in the book throughout, and you sort of give an excuse that you hear from either a parent or a kid to maybe not have a boundary or have to always have your phone on you, or all the things that you're sort of telling us really aren't good for us or our kids. And then you go back and then you say, well, here's the actual truth. And here's actual words you can say back to your kid, back to another parent. Like if an adult says, shouldn't kids learn how to manage their phone use on their own? Mm-hmm. Like I've heard that a lot.
Shouldn't kids learn how to manage their alcohol use on their own?
Yeah, I feel like.
Shouldn't we hand the car keys to 12-year-olds and let them figure it out? I mean, that's how I see that.
Yeah. I'll give you a hot take on something because we both live in San Diego, which e-bikes are a big popular issue. And the most surprised I was in the book, because I've been, there was an article in the Atlantic recently about e-bikes, and it said the biggest problem we have in the country is in North County, San Diego, and it named all the cities.
Yeah, I can believe it.
It said kids, the ones that go fast up to 30 miles an hour, kids are getting hurt and sometimes dying, but also more often there's like a senior citizen or an older person, they said usually over 65, is walking and the kid can't maneuver around them and they die. That's more common.
Yeah.
But just to throw a little controversy in this episode, just so it doesn't seem like we agree on everything, I've resisted the e-bike for my kid, even though the gangs of middle schoolers around all have them. What do you think about that?
Yeah. I mean, so there's some cities in San Diego County that are passing age minimums. It's often 12 or 13. And I think that does make some sense that, probably there's also restrictions on what type of e-bike and how fast it can go. And I also think that's fine. So I think, having some limits on it, that makes sense to me. However, with the sprawl that we have in San Diego County, the freedom that kids can have getting an e-bike is incredible. And it really can open up the world to them and give them that independence, which can really help them grow and learn how to make decisions on their own and so on. But should there be the age limits and the limits on how fast they can go? Absolutely. And that's also another case, too, where the parent has to make that decision for their own family and think about the trade-offs. But everything in life has trade-offs. Giving your kid a regular bicycle, they could get hurt or get somebody else hurt on that, too.
Yes, he does have a regular bike. Well, that's where we met in the middle for now.
Yeah.
And plus it's, exercise and things. I just feel like, and frankly, my own research, and this is very anecdotal and small sample size, but anytime I know you mentioned earlier, I know you have girls. Anytime I've seen someone or almost hit someone in the car because they're doing wheelies up a really steep hill by the beach.
It's boys.
It's always boys.
That tracks.
What,
as my kids would say, that tracks.
Oh, is that a thing, or am I just being?
No, absolutely. I mean, that's a
overgeneralizing?
huge sex difference, especially during the teenage years. Is physical risk taking.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and my kids are not only girls; they're even my oldest, who, as we all agree, is a unique individual. She never took really crazy risks.
Okay. Well, going back to your list of objections, I'm going to play the role of in your book as the parent objecting. What if kids don't learn how to manage their own use when they're young? Won't they go crazy when their controls are lifted?
Generally, no, because then their frontal lobe will be further along in development. They'll just be more mature, better able to handle it. And the argument that say, they have to learn social media use, young, because they won't know how to use it. And what if they have to use it in their job? You can learn how to use almost every social media platform in about 10 minutes. You don't need to start at age 10.
Yeah, part of the business model is not making it a challenge.
Correct.
I don't think that's it.
Exactly. And yeah, they're learning how to manage things. I mean, look, it is true that, your kid's going to become a legal adult, and then they're going to graduate from high school, or maybe in the other order, and then go off to college. And then, yes, you're not going to have as much of that control. But if you have set those guardrails when they're growing up, then it also becomes habit.
Is there part of it? Because, I don't think you got into this too much in the book, but we know that some pruning takes place in the brain, and kind of like use it or lose it at a few different parts in your development. At least two of them are before the age of 12. I think maybe, I don't know, but you would know this better than I. But doesn't that mean that if they're hardwiring their brain early to be able to pay attention for longer periods of time and think deeply, critically, wouldn't that be another reason to wait as long as you can?
Exactly. Absolutely. And, I think you can see that with adults who grew up without these technologies. Now, we've still been impacted. A lot of adults I know say it's harder to focus for them now too than it was 10 years ago, but they can usually still do it. And for a lot of kids who grew up changing tasks on phones and laptops like every few seconds, sitting down and trying to read even a semi-long magazine article is too much.
Yeah, the neural pathways, the physical, roadways, freeways in the brain that they would need to do that simply got pruned away or not developed.
Yep.
Which is, heartbreaking.
Exactly.
So one that is going to lead into what I definitely want to talk about next, but this is the objection that I've heard probably more often than not. Workarounds, mostly for time limits, like, aren't they just going to find a way around the parental controls and workarounds?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they might. And that's why you have to try to outsmart them. And it's also why you may have to course correct, and sometimes also just keep trying. So I've talked to a lot of parents who felt very defeated, and I am with them. I feel that way a lot of times too. But my thinking is, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. I use that phrase a couple times in the book because I'm such a fan of it. Yep, some things are going to fall through the cracks, but that's okay. At least then you have put some limits in place. This is the thing that is very frustrating. And this is where, I do have some agreement with that objection, is it seems to me that every time you figure out one device, another device pops up. You're playing whack-a-mole with devices, and then you put a limit in place, and then they find a workaround. This happened to me just in the last week. Okay.
Oh, tell us.
Yeah. So I have a Substack post on this about how to set up parental controls on an iPhone, because my middle daughter turned 16 and then got her driver's license. So within hours of getting her driver's license, she wanted to get the iPhone, because that's one of the rules that I talk about. You get your first smartphone when you get your driver's license. So I set it up and put in the parental controls. Like one of the ones that I really recommend to everybody is to block app downloads. Then if your kid wants an app, they have to talk to you about it. You have to have at least a little bit of a conversation about it, instead of them downloading it. You don't even know they have it. And then, God knows what they're doing on it and how many hours they're spending on it and what they're seeing, etc. At least then it's a conversation. So even though I say, 16 is the youngest they should get social media. One of the rules, no social media until, the rule is 16 or later. And I am trying to kick this can down the road as long as possible. So what I told her was, you've just got your license. Maybe you can have social media, but let's wait a little bit. So I'm just trying to wait as long as possible, right? Because I also have some pretty strong sympathy for the argument that we should instead wait until 18, legal adulthood, for social media. So I blocked app downloads because I didn't want her to download TikTok or Instagram without my knowing, right?
Right.
I put in the thing where I can see her phone without, so she can't change the passcode. So I look at the phone. I don't really care what she's texting people. That doesn't matter to me. But I went in there for another reason, because we'd gone on a trip and she had Netflix on it just for long plane rides. And I want to take that off. I don't want even any temptation to watch Netflix during the school day, because my kids' schools don't have the ban on phones during the school day.
I'm familiar. I think
don't get me started.
We should talk about that after.
Yes. So, and TikTok is on the phone. It's on the phone. The app.
Did you almost say the F word just now?
Yes, I did. Thank you. Yes, I did. I came very close and stopped myself.
Okay. Well, that's okay. We won't have to bleep it, but
yes.
I feel like this is a breaking development on Dr. Jean Twenge, and that she also can let an F word fly.
My kids would tell you otherwise.
Okay.
Yes, they would tell you otherwise.
Okay. So yeah. F and TikTok is right there
yes, right.
on the phone.
So I asked her, and at least she was honest with me, so I will give her that. She kind of mumbled it, but she's like, oh, you just go on TikTok.com and then you can download it. What the what? So
I didn't know that until just now.
well, neither did I.
What,
Right?
through your browser?
Yes, through the browser.
Oh man, I wouldn't have thought that Apple would allow that.
I don't
What are they
know.
doing?
I don't
What's
know.
going
So
on?
then I figured out, wait, okay, it's like really, and this is why I put in the Substack post. I was like, I gotta tell other people this so they can put this into place as well. There is a way then to block TikTok.com. You have to go in and block specific websites. So I blocked that. I blocked Instagram.com. I blocked Snapchat.com. And yeah, so as far as I know, last time I checked,
She's gonna get someone to send her the file.
oh
Download that
God.
app. I mean, that would work probably.
Stop. Stop.
This is real time. This is exposure therapy for us as parents. We're having to. Well, I think
Yeah.
you know what though. I think it's important to point out at this point how much you love and care for your kids.
Absolutely. And that's why I'm doing this. She's got a heavy course load. She sometimes is staying up too late, working on homework. I don't want her getting sucked into TikTok.
Yes, who would? It just feels like they're getting used. And I don't want my kids getting used to make someone who is already wealthy beyond belief and probably isn't happy even about that. But I don't think, not to go too far there, but who I think also we know as a rule, developers and CEOs, people in Silicon Valley do not let their kids use phones really at all. So why are you going to do it with my kids?
Yeah.
No,
Right.
thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you have great, well-detailed instructions in the book. And you talk about, what to do. Here's the third-party option, all these things. And those are all great. And I'm actually going to use the third-party option that you mentioned in here.
Look, there's some stuff that is fairly easy. Like if, and I do not recommend this at all. I don't think, this is why I say wait until they have their driver's license to give a smartphone, because there's too many workarounds. If you really want to seriously lock it down, it actually takes less time. Like, for example, if my kid was younger, if she wasn't 16 and a half, I could have just turned the internet browser off completely. And then there's not that workaround. So if you go really draconian, then it actually doesn't take as long. It's just she's 16 and a half.
Right. You want to balance it out a little bit, and
Yeah.
she needs it as a tool in some
Exactly.
situations. Okay. Well, I have not felt more seen than when I read this chapter. So you also brought up, which I thought was good, having zones or times where the phone does not come out, just kind of creating some norms. And a lot of these made sense to me. Tell us about some of your favorite times to just kind of say, no, we're not going to have an experience blocker in the room for this.
Yeah. Family dinner is a great example. Now, the thing about that is if you don't want your kids on their phones at dinner, you should not be on your phone either. So there is some role modeling that's involved here. Vacations, and that can be hard to pull off for the entire vacation, but for certain times, it's so nice to not have everybody on the phone. And if you're going to try to do it for most of the vacation, the workaround, you have to figure out as a parent is a way for them to take pictures. So buy them a separate camera.
Like a digital camera.
Yeah,
Those are really in vogue now.
There's not as many cheap digital cameras out there as I would like, though. That's been one challenge.
I feel like they're coming back. There was just an article.
Would be great. That would be helpful.
They're coming back. I saw them at Costco a week ago. And,
nice.
And my friends' daughters who are in high school already, they both have one. I think it's going to be a thing. Or if
I
not
think that'll make it a lot easier.
Okay.
Make it a lot easier. But a road trip is a great example. When you're driving on vacation, it's very tempting for the road trip say, okay, that's when we're going to allow the iPad or whatever. You could, compromise position maybe for one movie or something on a 6-hour drive. But one of the best vacations that we had was my younger one actually forgot her phone at home. So I didn't even have to
Nice.
take it away or make a rule or something. It was just,
That'd be
it
nice
happened,
to engineer that.
right?
You can just try
Yeah.
to get them to forget
Well,
it.
I did to an extent because we weren't that far away from home in the Uber when she realized it. I'm like, oh, we're not going to turn back. I actually high-fived her and she got mad at me, which I don't really blame her for, but I couldn't help myself. I was like, yes.
I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's good parenting, though. You're being transparent. You're excited for her. She's
Yeah.
about to experience
Yeah.
something.
And I was, and I mean, and look, like it's not 100% good. She was kind of bouncing off the walls. She was 13 at the time, but it was amazing because she did this thing and we had a bunch of long drives on that trip, and she would go, question for the car. And then she'd pose a question and we would all answer it. And her older sister was not always having it. She didn't always want to participate, but she even did sometimes. And then the
Gotta get a good
three
question.
of us did. Yeah. And so we'd each try to come up with questions, and we talked about so much stuff. Like, I mean, it was favorite this or favorite that, but it was also like favorite family memory, and we ended up getting into discussions about political and cultural issues and stuff, for some of it. It was lovely.
That's amazing. That sounds amazing. Oh, man. So I think a whole chapter devoted to how to sort of nudge your kid in the direction to stress them out about packing, make sure the phone's not on the packing list, and then just really act like you're late even though you aren't, and then get in the Uber and then be like, sorry, I can't. I wish you had brought it. No, that's awesome. Well, that's a car ride you'll never forget versus one that would have already been forgotten, never to be brought back. It's also a car ride, I'll point out, that didn't really make anyone any money outside of the car, which I think that's a victory as well. That's kind of a small victory.
Yeah. Enterprise Rent-A-Car, they got a little profit, but
Okay. But you're sort of taking back all the things you mentioned were, in a lot of ways, your thoughts, ideas, beliefs, values, and it's not just reacting in the moment to someone else's content. You're thinking about things. You're finding out more about the people you love. Your relationships get better. How can this be a bad thing? And it frustrates me, when the Australian government decided to make their, landmark decision to, ban social media for younger kids. And you wrote a little something about this. I kept hearing the most BS, absolutely nonsensical criticisms of that law. Tell us what those were and how you responded, because I felt like you did a great job responding. As is, I think your style is just objective truth, objective truth, objective truth, objective truth, and here's what they said, and here's what's actually happening. But yeah, really frustrating because I was so happy that someone had the wherewithal or even
the
political,
guts.
the guts to do it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, people are like, no, it's not good. It's putting a bad spin. How could it not be good? How could it at all?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's so many of those BS arguments. I've lost track, to be honest.
Yeah.
One I've heard even recently is, bans never work. Yes, they do. I'm sorry, but yes, they do. I mean, when they raised the drinking age to 21, teenage drinking has just plummeted.
Right. I don't know too many kids. My 12-year-old's not coming home with scratchers for the California lottery. Bans don't work? What does that even mean?
I know. I don't know. And I think what they mean is that, some 15-year-olds have managed to get their hands on alcohol. Well, duh. It's not going to be 100%. And I think, and they are still working it out in Australia in terms of the age verification and trying to, plug the holes of the workarounds. That's to be expected. It's new. They were the first to do it. But I saw some data recently about the usage of 15 and unders on these apps, and it has plummeted. It is not at zero because they are still trying to work out all the details, but it went way down.
Who was expecting zero? Why was that even a thing?
Exactly, right? Exactly.
Yeah, I feel like because, and you talk about this as well, this age and stage of development one of the most important things is to not be cast as an outsider and to fit in, to get the approval of the peers around you. If the government in charge says, "Hey, this is so bad for you," even though people are making money, we're going to stop doing it. Isn't that just the ultimate excuse because you mentioned there's a lot of kids who don't really like the streaks or having to give instant communication or some of the things happening.
Right. It gives some kids an out. And then if it does reduce the use among young teens and kids through friction, or having to work at it to find a workaround or whatever it is, then it becomes less the social norm that's what everybody is doing. That's how everybody is communicating. And then that helps spread.
If bans don't work, I don't think California ever would have legalized marijuana because it was working.
Yes. Great example.
Oh, man. We have a lot of, educators, clinicians, and parents, and sometimes all three, in the same family listening. What is something you're hopeful about, and how would you send them into the future from now?
There's a couple things I think are really good to touch on. So one is, I hear this so frequently about social media and about not letting your kid have social media. Oh, but then they'll have no friends. Completely, utterly untrue.
And then they'll have all real friends. What?
I know, yeah. Right? Exactly. And look, it is true. These apps are very popular. They talk about them, all of this. But of course they can have friends. They can communicate with those friends in so many other ways other than social media. So, I think that's just important to get across, that I know that from my own kids and their friends, and then parents I talk to around the country, teens I talk to around the country, that it is more than possible. And this idea of like, oh, they'll be totally ostracized. In almost all the studies, those who don't use social media or who use it only a tiny bit, they're the happiest. They're the least depressed. And it is true for some things like watching videos that are even more common. Those who don't use it at all, yeah, they're a little more unhappy than those who use it a little bit. But for social media, especially for girls, the most common finding is those who don't use it at all are the happiest and most satisfied with their lives. And if they were completely ostracized, you really think that would happen? Even though that group probably has some people who are like really poor or who have extremely strict parents, where, even though that group, has to have people in it who have unusual situations, they're still the happiest and most satisfied. So that's really striking.
That's a good point. And I think there's a couple things. One of them I did want to talk briefly about is socioeconomic status. I think if you have less options and you're less concerned with going on a trip and more concerned with, I was raised by a single mom, so I was at home alone a lot. Mm-hmm. And my neighborhood wasn't always the best place to go outside. So I ended up eating and watching TV a lot. But I think there's also so many kids and families who think, well, if they're on their laptop or their tablet at home, at least I know where they are and they're somewhat safe, and in a neighborhood where it actually matters, because the neighborhood's not safe either.
Yeah. And, and I get that there's going to be variations. But the problem is that they're not actually safe when they're on that screen.
Yeah, they have all these adults and predators or whoever else that would normally never have access to your kid, all of a sudden may have exponentially more. That's a good point. I do forget.
Yeah, and the mental health problems, if that's what they're doing instead of calling people on the phone or going out with friends or learning a new skill or whatever.
Safe but clinically depressed. So, yeah.
That is sadly a pretty good summary of a lot of young people today.
What I'm most concerned about moving forward is the emerging use of chatbots and the emotional connection.
Me too. I just think that we need to get out the message much more about AI companion apps, because a lot of people I talk to are not even aware of that these exist. That there's AI sexy chat, there's AI girlfriends, there's AI characters, and kids and teens and adults for that matter are forming emotional relationships with these chatbots. And that is bad enough for an adult. And then you think about a 12-year-old who, if you give them a smartphone with no parental controls, there is nothing to stop them from having their first, quote, romantic relationship with a chatbot. And that is terrifying to me.
Yeah, you did actually. I'm now remembering you gave a list of reasons why. And I remember in there, it was like a chatbot, or maybe this was something on Substack, but you said like a chatbot has no needs, is always I don't think you said obsequious or what, like sycophantic.
Is the word that's usually used. Yeah.
Yeah. What are the other things? Because it made so much sense, and it brought me back to that one phone call that was the most stressed out I could have been as a 14-year-old having to make that call. But if I could have just settled for like some crappy sexy chat or something, maybe I would have never made that call, and I'd feel horrible about myself because I didn't really do anything that was very cool.
And you would learn if you instead had a relationship with the AI girlfriend that they were always there. They had no needs of their own. They were always up for a sexy chat. And it wasn't, and they had none of their own needs. And none of that translates to a relationship with a real human being.
Yeah, I think it translates to disaster. And it just translates, I think, to put it simply, to a commodified consumer version of a relationship.
Exactly.
And that doesn't help anyone except for
the company who's making money off of it, to come back to that theme.
Wow, that sounds like the ultimate experience blocker. If you look at it in the way of that, maybe the most profound experience we can have as humans is to be deeply in love or have intimacy with another person. And we even have something that's purporting to be better than that, or blocking that, or giving us some, crap version of that, that's easier to get. Then that sounds like we just need to be really careful that we're not blocking some of the best things in life and choosing pleasure over joy and contentment.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Well, I could not have felt more seen, and I feel very ready for my next conversation. Poor Oliver is going to not know what hit him. He's also going to start forgetting he does have a light phone, so he is going to start forgetting that on trips, I'm sure, because I'm going to engineer the whole situation. So this book is your most recent book. It's been out, I think it came out in September.
Correct.
So, yeah. It's excellent for anyone who wants to read it. Dr. Twenge, I believe you're going to join us again live in San Diego in the fall, which I can't wait for. And both of us won't have to travel very far. So I know people are excited about that. But where can people, your Substack is amazing, but can you tell us just all the places you want people to, they're going to want to know more and hear more after this. So where can they find you?
Yeah, so the Substack is Generation Tech. So it's a mix of advice for parents and research on generational differences and the effects of technology. My website is just genetwenge.com, and it has all the stuff about my books and my research on my speaking engagements, because I love doing speaking engagements for parents. I do them for corporations too, on generational differences. I do them for clinicians about understanding kids and teens and tech and their mental health, and how they're growing up more slowly, and all of those things. I love making people laugh, and I love teaching them, the generational differences and the data around this. So that really is one of my favorite parts about my job these days, is doing speaking engagements.
Well, I could speak from experience. The jokes are great. They're smart. They are going right along with, you get all this great information, great research, and then good joke in between. So I feel like, I would recommend that. And hopefully we can look at, getting the word out to more parents and helping them in the fall. So thank you so much, Dr. Twenge, for being here. It's absolutely a pleasure. Last thing I'll say, maybe in the future, I would love to have you come back and talk about generations, just because I think that would be so interesting for people. So we can hopefully plan that soon.
Be great. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope it helped. Stay connected with us at This Helps Podcast and thishelpspodcast.com. We actually do update that website. It's pretty good. You can also review other people's reviews and then think about what you want to say about our show, because it helps people find the show.